Okay, I think we are ready to go. So thank you for joining us for today's webinar introducing the new Gruyter.com. Before I introduce our speaker, I would like to cover a few housekeeping topics. So today's webinar is being recorded. We will be able to share a link with you after the event is complete. We welcome you to revisit the content and share it with your colleagues. Our second point is that we also invite your comments and questions. So please look at the Q&A chat box on your screen. If you think of a question for the speaker at any point, just type it in there and I will either ask our speaker at that time or hold it for discussion at the end of the event. Today's presenter is Ben Ashcroft, the Vice President Commercial at De Gruyter. And at this time, I'm going to hand the floor over to Ben, who is going to start today's presentation. Ben, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Caitlin. And hello to everybody. Thank you for very much for joining us today. Good afternoon to those of you who are in Europe, like me. Good morning to those of you in the Americas. We started a series of webinars today, early in the morning Europe time. First one aimed at our colleagues and customers in Asia Pacific. And since then, we've taken a bit of a journey across the globe, catching people in appropriate time zones. And it's great to be rounding off the day with those of you in the Americas. So thanks again for joining us. As Caitlin said, my role at De Gruyter is VP Commercial. That means I'm responsible for our global sales, marketing, and the customer service team. And it's my pleasure to take you through this presentation to introduce our new digital publishing platform to you and to outline to you what we have done to develop it and where we're going from there. And I look forward to answering your questions as we go through. Joining us as well is my colleague Katarina Bayer, who manages our customer service team, and she'll be helping me to cover any of the questions which are perhaps more technical in nature. Okay, so I'd like to start with an introduction to Gruyter.com generally, and to the background to the site. The first thing to say about Gruyter.com is that its size represents a significant management challenge to us. This is a graphic that attempts to visualize the site and all the systems behind it and the content that we have online, because we have a lot of data. It's almost 6 terabytes of content that's available via the site. And every month on the website, we have something like 3 million sessions happening, about 4 million individual page impressions. And around the world during business hours, there are usually around 1,000 users on the site at any one time concurrently during our main business hours. Since launch, we've also seen these numbers going up. These are numbers that cover almost the whole of February. They're actually a good week, 10 days old now. And at that point, we had 200,000 PDF downloads since launch. About 5,000 institutions had logged into the site and were live on it. And we were averaging around 40,000 users per day at that point. And that's 15 million a year if we keep going at that rate. In fact, we aim to have about 20 million users on the site this year, because we want to develop the number of people who are engaging with our content. Many of you will know, and many of you will have had the experience together with us of going live with a new version of our previous site just last year, almost exactly 12 months ago, in fact. So why did we do this again so soon? And why did we do this to ourselves and to our customers again so soon? Simply, it's the case that our scale means that our previous off-the-shelf platform, we worked with Pub Factory, could no longer deal with the growing volume and complexity of our content and data. It was too slow. Access to licensed content was often an issue. We had far too much downtime when the site was inaccessible for various reasons. And the whole process of bug fixing, upgrading, and changing things on the site were far too inflexible. It took months to get anything done because as a company dealing with the needs of multiple publishers and the inevitable trade-offs that happened, compromises were always being made between the needs of different publishers on the Pub Factory technology. And then as a final factor, the problems with our last platform relaunch in early 2020 showed that we really needed fundamental change in the way that we managed our online presence. Plus, we want to have control over what we offer our customers and when, and we don't want a vendor and the needs of other publishers dictating this. Publishing is already an online business, and De Gruyter is in large parts already an e-commerce business, just like a lot of the online companies that we engage with in our lives on a daily basis. And the pandemic has accelerated this trend. And so therefore we needed to start behaving a bit more like one of those online companies, these e-commerce companies that we all know. In this case, we need to be able to serve authors, researchers, and all of our customers digitally. And in order to do that, we've significantly upgraded our capabilities. First of all, by taking platform development in-house and recruiting a team of digital specialists to do that for us. We've formed a partnership with 67 Bricks, which is a digital consultancy from the UK, who have worked across the industry, most prominently with Emerald. They built an award-winning platform for Emerald Publishing, and we ended our cooperation with Pub Factory as a result. And we also started working with a range of service providers across the digital landscape, like Liblinks, AWS, PSI, and I'll talk about those a little bit more on one of the slides to come. So we built a new platform, and it's worth just mentioning that we built the platform in 18 months from scratch, from the ground up, and also during a pandemic. So working remotely, not seeing each other, people around the world cooperating via video conferencing. And that is not an easy thing to do. The core platform is much faster than the previous one. And because we've built it using a range of cloud-based components, it's really flexible. So it can be scaled up as required to make sure that performance remains good. And we will always use the newest technology because of that cloud-based infrastructure. And as I mentioned earlier, we're working with some of the best providers of digital services out there. Liblinks is an API-based solution for online access management that allows us to manage and simplify and automate and secure our users' access to our content across multiple devices. PSI is an application that enables us to facilitate legitimate access to scholarly content for users, while eliminating subscription abuse and eradicating IP address abuse. Amazon Web Services is probably the one that you're all most familiar with. It's the world's most broadly adopted cloud platform service. And moving our technology to the cloud allows us to be much quicker to innovate and experiment. Finally, Foxy.io is a website application that will allow us to include a web shop on our platform that makes buying from our website really, really easy and seamless for researchers and other customers. Finally, we've built a product data warehouse where all the metadata and content data sits, and which can be queried in multiple ways and deliver data to various locations, making us much more flexible in how we can use our content. This will enable us to build new digital products in the future and to get our content online more quickly and more reliably than before. The benefits are a mix of benefits to De Gruyter as a company, so internal ones and also real improvements for our customers. Fundamentally, using better technology will allow us to give our users what they want. And by and large, that means quick and simple access to our content with fewer problems. We think our customer service is fantastic. They're a great team, but we want them to have a bit less work to do. And we want you to spend less of your time interacting with our customer service because you have better things to do as well. We want to be transparent with you about what we're developing and get your input into it. And we want to gather data from the platform so that we have objective evidence of what people are doing on our site, how our content is being used, so that we can use this to do stuff that you and your users want. So our strategy behind this has 4 pillars. By owning the site, that enables us to do what we want and what our customers want as quickly and as flexibly as possible. And we'll decide that by talking to you, but primarily by interrogating the data that comes from the platform. We've already launched the platform, and I'll talk about how we did that and why in a minute, but that's only the start. We will be continuously developing it according to our timetable and not to a timetable dictated by another company. And finally, we do seriously mean to innovate and test new things. The flexibility of our technology means that it is no longer incredibly expensive or incredibly time-consuming to try things out. We can do that quite quickly. Failing fast is something that we actually mean to try and do. So we will test new ideas all the time, see if they fly, and if they do, take them further from there. The word agile is also overused, but this is what that means at its heart. Our approach, therefore, is to start with something that is better than what we had, the platform that we have now, and then continue to develop it constantly and rapidly. This is what we've been planning and have been doing over the last months. And I'd now like to introduce you to the results of that, which is the new Gruyter.com. Now, this is the question that's been asked, I think, the most of all the questions since we launched. And yes, at the moment, the site really is very basic. It's a search bar and then the minimum number of pages that we need to legally provide or have to give basic information. And we launched this first version of our platform, which is a so-called minimum viable product, with the sole priority of getting the fundamental technological basis right before we add anything else. In keeping with the fundamentals of lean and agile software development, we built the earliest usable version of our platform that does what it should, without being able to do much else. This first version is focused on the key functionality of providing access to licensed academic content, which is what the overwhelming majority of our users expect from our platform. So we took a very deliberate approach to deciding what would be part of the new platform at launch. We wanted all our content to be on there. We wanted to provide the access methods that you as librarians and your users expect. We wanted to make sure that you had access to the content that you'd licensed, that you could report on how it was being used. And we wanted to be able to make sure that we knew what was happening using analytics and performance tracking. And we also wanted to make sure that as much as possible, the links were seamless from the old URLs people have been using to the new site, so putting in redirects. We deliberately decided not to build in a whole range of other functionalities and features that, in our view, were secondary to the key purpose of the platform. So the web shop, for example, will come along shortly. We have a whole host of information and marketing pages that were on the old site that we wanted to revisit and decide whether they were really required and really useful before we just put them online on another site. And then there was a whole range of other smaller items where we looked at them and said, well, actually, we want to decide whether those are really important before we put in the work to implement them on the new site. And first of all, we're going to concentrate on the key functionality. Why and how do we decide this? Well, we prioritized very carefully using the data that we harvested from our old site and the knowledge that we gained from that about the priorities and the behavior of our users. So on the old platform, we knew that about 96% of events, and events in this context mean clicks, were about book or journal content. So finding content, viewing it, downloading it, printing it. And about 4% of events, so that very, very small proportion, cover everything else on the site. So whether that's visiting information pages, downloading covers, getting hold of MARC records, requesting a trial, sharing content in channels, all those things accounted for a very, very small proportion of what people actually did on our old site. And that has been our guiding light through the entire process of putting the new Gruyter.com live. That doesn't mean that we didn't have the needs of institutional customers very much in mind as part of the development process. And I'd like to go into a few of the things that the new platform offers for librarians now. The My Products page is a new thing. If you go onto Gruyter.com, you'll see the link to it from the top right of the page. It's actually visible to all users from an authorized institution. So if your patrons are logged in using institutional credentials to view licensed content on the site, they will be able to access this list as well and see which content from De Gruyter and partner publishers your institution has licensed. It's a great example of the iterative approach to development that we have taken. We've started with a version of this list that is deliberately quite basic. It gives you an overview of holdings. It gives you links to package content and ebook lists. And if you click on the journal titles, it shows you the content from the years that you have subscribed to and that is available to your institution. But it's not pretty, and it's not particularly user-friendly at the moment. We will be working on this over the coming weeks and months to make it more user-friendly, to make it look better, guided by what we see about how it is used. A further new feature of the platform is that we're working with the Ip Registry. For those of you who don't know them, it's a UK company set up by two industry veterans, I guess, from who worked for the American Chemistry Society, who have basically made it their mission to help publishers police access to content, publishers and librarians. If you get a chance to hear them talk about how they are fighting a kind of ongoing battle against misuse of data by organized crime and bad actors of various kinds, I can recommend it. It's really interesting. But there are three core reasons as to why using the Ip registry is a great idea. The first is that whenever we use a manual process for checking and changing IP details in our systems, even our customer service team, who, as I say, are fantastic, they can make errors in that process, and it's time consuming. And transmitting IP ranges and changes between systems eliminates that potential for error. The second thing is that using the IP registry is an opportunity for you to save time. If you update your details in their portal, then you can feed about 150 publishers with that data in one process. You don't need to contact all the publishers individually to tell them that perhaps your IP ranges have changed, or to ask them to check that they have the correct details for your institution. And the third thing is that I think it's in all of our interests that we help to prevent the misuse of content by ensuring that only legitimate IP addresses get access to copyrighted content, which is good for the health of research and of the information industry more widely. Our final feature is liblinks. Liblinks replaces our old access management system, which was one of the most hated pieces of software that we worked with at Gruyter because of its unreliability and the difficulty with working with it. This is a system for identity and access management. It holds all our customer account details and their access information. So IP addresses are sent across from the IP registry. It holds referring URLs, usernames and passwords, and shibboleth details. And it's also the system that you can log on to as library admins to get hold of all the information you need about your account. You can see the URL in the slide there, and you should have received details of how to update your passwords from customer service. One of the key things you can find there is usage reports. We provide Counter 5 reports through liblinks, and it also contains, as it says on the slide, the Sushi API details. And we're currently in the progress of migrating Counter reports from 2019 and 2020 into liblinks so that you have a comparison between years for your usage. Okay, so those are some of the features of the platform. We launched it on February the 1st, and how's that gone? Well, we had initially overwhelmingly positive feedback from our customers and partners on launch. Many people commented on the speed of the site compared with the old one, and the design was something that was also frequently mentioned. And our approach was quite widely covered in the trade media, many of whom were interested in what it meant for De Gruyter becoming a more digitally focused company. In terms of the performance of the site, we can already see really significant improvements versus the old platform. This is data from Google Lighthouse, which is an open source tool for measuring the quality of web pages. You can run it against any web page, and it provides an audit of various KPIs to do with the website, which are also important for determining how a website performs in Google search rankings. And as you can see, it is significantly quicker than the old site, and it scores very strongly on all the other metrics, which is good news when it comes to ensuring the visibility of content and satisfaction of our users. We're working hard to further improve the speed score, but even though that particular metric is amber rather than green, it actually compares very well. And we can work on these improvements because we internally can track everything about the site's performance. This is one of the benefits of the Amazon Web Services infrastructure that we're now on. So we can see if something is going wrong technically with the site, usually before the user even notices it. All that said, we do know that there have been some initial problems with the platform, and we know that we have put you and your users to a lot more trouble than we would ideally have liked to. And I'd like to spend some time now explaining what those problems are and what we're doing about them. Broadly, we can break those issues down into 4 categories. It can be difficult to separate them in practice. So, for example, the reason someone cannot access an ebook could be about technical problems, it could be about metadata issues, it could be missing content. And as a result, we've seen a spike in customer service tickets because it's taken longer than usual to resolve some of these issues due to the investigations required. We have been trying to keep you all up to date on the status of the various issues with the platform. You'll see on the slide links to our German and English language FAQ pages. Please do check back on those pages regularly to see the latest news about fixes and maybe some hints about things that you can do in order to help us fix access for your patrons. Going through these through these four main groups of issues. Access, first of all. We did have some problems with the import of access details into our new LibLink system, and we are still working on some duplicate IP addresses, for example, that may be tripping some people up. We also didn't know that customers using VPN to control access, if they were using IPv4 and IPv6, that was causing an issue. But the biggest single thing has been easy proxy. That's been very problematical. Here we are still investigating, but at the moment we don't think the technology on our end has a fundamental problem in it. We think rather that the issue lies with the sheer variety of different settings that are possible on the library end and how our systems interact with those. So it's very much at the moment a matter of trial and error to find a solution for each customer, and customer service is engaging with individual customers and going through a range of possibilities to try to eliminate each one, which again, I'm afraid takes some time. So we're working on that as fast as we can. I'll go into the DOI and the content issues in more depth on another slide, but I wanted to say a word about databases. We deliberately went live without a few of the features of databases because we could see from our data that they are less used than other content types. And this was really the only option that we had at the time if we were to make this site available within our time frame. In addition, some content took longer to migrate than we expected because it turned out that a lot of it was not cleanly tagged or properly structured, so a large cleanup was required. Finally, TLL, which is one of our best used database products, was migrating to a new platform. That was a technical necessity, and it took a little longer to do that than expected, during which time we had to ask our patrons to access the content on a German open access site with PDF documents. But I'm pleased to say that it went live yesterday, and I'll show you a snapshot of it at the end of the presentation. In summary, we can say that almost all of the issues that we've experienced and you have experienced have something in common. They're not the result of new technology and problems with the introduction of that new technology, but they have their roots in how we worked with our previous platform and the shortcomings of that technology. So we're cleaning house now, and some issues are coming to the surface precisely because we are exposing them on the new platform. We are fixing them now, so we're very confident that these problems will not happen again. We know that we have already tested your patience this time last year with the old platform launch, and now we're doing it again. But please do bear with us while we sort out the remaining bugs, and we're confident that the results will be worthwhile. To update you on the status of those current issues, really the latest information, the easy proxy issue, as I said, it's a matter of getting to the root of the problems almost on an individual customer level. We're working with OCLC as well. And there is some information in the FAQs of how to update your stanzas. That is the first thing that we ask you to try, and customer service can then work with you on other possibilities. On the DOIs, we actually publish DOIs on the site before they are registered with Crossref for new content. That means that there's a slight delay sometimes before those DOIs work. For older content, we are cleaning up. There are some missing, but we're registering those continuously. If you come across those, please do contact us, make us aware, and we will fix those things very quickly. As far as missing content is concerned, we're uncovering problems with either the Gruyter or publisher partner content that was either never digitized or was not put online properly or has technical faults in the files. These are overwhelmingly legacy issues. In other words, they were problems on our old site as well, and they're just becoming more obvious as we expose them on the new site. We also had an initial issue with the feed of content to the site, but that is now fixed, and we're now down to less than less than 1,000 ebook titles which are problematical in some way, which is under 1% of the ebook content that we have on Gruyter.com. And we also have a small number of journals issues which we have to fix as well. I expect us to be at less than 500 ebooks causing problems by the end of this week. So we are moving as quickly as we can to fix this. And in general, if the content is available, we can fix any problems pretty quickly. There are some cases where we literally have to source print books from libraries, scan them, and then recreate the XML and the metadata. And that can mean that it takes a little longer to fix the problems. Lastly, the databases. We are making progress there as well, but I'm afraid it is going to take a little longer. We fixed the acute things, for example, a issue we had with access to the combined BTL TLL product, but we are still uploading some content. The AKL database is particularly difficult because some of the content is quite old. It's an old product generally. There is a lot of it, and fixing the structural issues with that content is going to take us a while. The other thing is that the advanced search, browse, and filter functions for our databases won't be available for a little longer. You can plan on us having those online, hopefully by the end of April, but it may be early May before we're fully up to speed with those things. This is, as promised, a snapshot of TLL, which we moved on to a completely new tech basis in order to make it a much improved product. I hope you agree it looks really nice, much better than a lot of our database products have until now, and that it should be really a really nice product to use. And I think it bodes well for further development of online reference products from De Gruyter, because this really should become the new standard for things that we publish from now onwards. So we're coming to the end of the presentation now, but I did just want to leave you with some insights into where we go from here. Because, as I've said a number of times, the minimum viable product is definitely not where we mean to stop. This is how we were going to do our development going forward. In the past, I think in common with lots of other organizations, we've taken ages to build something that is useful, and it may be really good by the time we finished it, but it takes a very long time to get there, and there's nothing that is useful to our customers and users in the interim. Instead, working in an agile way means that we might start with something that appears basic and just offers a limited amount of functionality. But our goal would be to continuously develop these products to something that is significantly improved and offers an entirely new range of possibilities, using the feedback from you and our users and the data to inform us as we go along. So the library, the information on content available to a library may be at the skateboard stage now, but it's absolutely our intention to make a fantastic sports car out of it over time, and to give you something that is really a pleasure to use and interact with. And that is basically summarized by the idea of continuous delivery. Our infrastructure is set up to allow us to build and test and release changes to the software all the time. With Pub Factory, we were releasing updates to the platform basically every 3 months, sometimes every 6 months. On the new degruyter.com, we'll be doing it every 2 weeks. And the way that we'll be working means that those updates will be much less costly, much less time consuming, and much less risky to do. So we'll be able to make updates to the live application almost without you noticing it. And we'll be able to measure those updates and find out if they do what they should do, and if they don't, correct it. The main goals that we have for platform development in 2021 are really all focused around making life better for you, our customers, and the users that you look after. So making sure the platform is completely stable and working on the speed, improving its usability, and reducing the number of complaints that we get from our customers. And everything we do this year will be prioritized using those criteria, and we will use data to inform us in detail about what we build next. We also want to be very transparent with you about what we're building and when, and for that reason, we will be publishing our roadmap onto the website, our development roadmap onto the website in the next couple of weeks, so that you will be able to see in real time exactly what we're planning for when. And I hope that will be something that you will find useful, so that you know when we will be publishing particular features and functionality onto the site. That said, I'd like to leave you just with a very short, very brief insight into immediate developments. We're basically doing a lot of back office work to clean up and put our house in order at the moment, before we start looking at content and further features. So there's a bunch of work to be done around access, integrating the feed from Ip Registry to liblinks, and putting those legacy counter reports into liblinks, as I said before. And we'll also be implementing a new interface for patrons of institutional customers to more easily get access and log in using their credentials. That's the seamless access piece. The webshop will go live in steps, starting in April and going into May, as we test and launch features one after another. And within the next 7 to 10 days, you can expect that a range of information pages about De Gruyter and offering useful information and contact details around the publishing house will start to appear on the site. We're conscious that the current situation doesn't make us particularly easy to work with, and we want to fix that ASAP. And then in May, we intend to start putting the first features of our librarian hub online. That will be a set of online services centered around the provision of information and data to you as librarians, as information management professionals, allowing you to do a certain amount of self-service. So being able to look at your usage, being able to analyze turnaways for De Gruyter and partner content, seeing content listings that are more easy to interact with, and a lot more besides. And we are holding conversations with librarian customers around the world at the moment to determine what we should do first and in what order. That is as much as I have to tell you at the moment. I look forward to your questions. If you would like me to go into more detail on anything that I've presented, or if there's anything that we haven't mentioned that you want to know about, please stay tuned generally for more. I hope we'll have the opportunity to update you in another webinar on our plans as they develop. A lot is going to happen this year, so there should be a lot to talk about. Thank you very much for your attention, first of all, and I'm looking forward to your questions. Thanks very much.
Hi, Ben. It looks like we do have one question here from Lisa, but it looks like that question was answered by Kat within the chat. We have another question from Harold. Will the new platform have spillover benefits in speeding new ebook output through the production process to site load and online availability?
Yes, Harold, thank you very much. That's a great question. The answer is yes. I touched on this, but as part of the development of the platform, we're basically rebuilding our entire digital infrastructure within the publishing house, and the product data warehouse that I referenced earlier is a key part of achieving exactly what your question mentions. So putting our content certainly through the whole process of getting it online much more quickly and smoothly. We are experiencing a few teething problems with the product data warehouse as well. One was solved just today, but we're already seeing some benefits, and I think you will see those coming through very shortly.
Okay, we have a question from Lizette. Are you considering Open Athens authentication?
Lizette, Kat will correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I'm aware, Open Athens authentication functions already for the site.
It does indeed. So please send us your details and we'll add them in.
Okay, and we have a question from Jill. Will there be an A to Z journal list to browse?
Jill, we haven't yet decided whether we're going to do that or not. Browse has been an issue that has come up today in all the webinars that we've done and has been part of the feedback that we've had from customers. So we are going to look at the best way of doing that, which is basically about meeting the needs of, I think, subject electronic resources, librarians, and a range of people who need to see an overview of what we publish. We are planning to do a lot of work on information pages that will give, hopefully give an overview of our publishing programs in the different subject areas. But at the moment, we're not explicitly planning an A to Z list. I just see there's another comment from Kathy in the chat saying, please add an A to Z title list. So that's clearly, I'll take that away as something which where there is obviously strong feelings about it, and we'll discuss it with the tech team. Okay, I think we still have some time for questions if you have more or comments. So, and here's one.
Okay, we have Dennis asks, is using a single easy proxy installation and thus having a single IP for multiple sub-accounts possible? For example, one faculty has access to TLL, whereas some content is available to the whole university.
Kat, help.
If it is a shared single IP, we can't really differentiate between one faculty and others. There would need to be two IP ranges or some other factor that we would have to look at. So at the moment, the main issue is that we can't deal with overlapping IPs, which is why, for example, sometimes there might be issues if we haven't managed to tidy all of the data away properly. The system will block access if there's an overlapping IP. So we're currently working on that, which is why we can only have one and not share. Sorry.
Okay, Kat, and Dennis said it is a shared IP, so thank you for your answer. We have another question from Lenny. Counter 5 statistics. It looks like only the master reports are available at the moment, at least the last time I checked. Will the standard views also become available?
Yes, as far as I'm aware, but I'm not sure about the timeline. So I think, Lena, if we can take that away and get back to you on the timeline, then we will do that and give you a better response later on.
And there's just a comment from Dominic. Many thanks to Ulrich for providing access usage on LibLinks. So for any JUSP clients on the webinar, JISC is working on Sushi integration today.
Yeah, thanks, Dominic. That came up in the first webinar that we did this morning. There were questions about that, so that's good news.
We have a question from Kathy. Our account includes 2 IP ranges because of 2 distinct locations. Can you manage that?
Do you mean splitting the 2 locations? by IP range, yes, we could do that. You can obviously also have several IP ranges in your account, as long as they don't overlap. But please send us an email to service@degruyter.com, and we will be able to answer IP questions in greater detail by email rather than by chat now.
And a question from Judith: have you changed the metadata of articles published ahead of print? In our discovery tool, they now have volume 0, and therefore they are outside of our subscription that starts at volume 1 in the knowledge base.
Yeah, Judith, that's a good question. I'm not entirely sure, and I would like to take that away and cover that with our production team, if that's okay, and get back to you in detail. I'm not aware of anything that we've changed by design. So I think I'd like to check that out and let you know.
Okay, it looks like we covered all the questions so far, unless there's any final questions. And Ben, would you like to add anything before we wrap up?
I think all I really have to say is thank you to everybody for participating and for your attention and questions. We will take away those questions that we haven't been able to answer clearly just now and make sure that you get an answer. Other than that, the detailed issues that some of you had around IPs and access, if you can give customer service the full details, then they will look into those as quickly as possible. Thank you very much again for taking part, and we will be in touch with details of the recording and the answers to the questions that we haven't answered. Yeah, have a good rest of your day.
Thank you all. We'll see you next time.